Silence as Yoga by Swami Paramananda. As I have shown you this is Silence as Yoga by Swami Paramananda. Now we had done the first chapter. Today we are going to do the second chapter. Chapter name is Silence and Co-ordination. So the Mahabharata says, observing the vow of silence when one begins to set his mind on yoga, that is spiritual practices, then discrimination and knowledge and power to avoid evil are gained by him. Maharaj continues, what sleep does for our body and nervous system, silence does for our mind and spirit. All the discordant conditions in our life are greatly due to our lack of coordination of both physical and mental forces. Until we learn to think and act with calm, unruffled attitude, we cannot make our life productive. The practice of silence is a very great help for acquiring evenness of mind and tranquility of body. The silence which leads to efficiency, however, is not a negation, a state merely of sitting and doing nothing. It is experienced only when the whole being has been unified and is flowing through one channel in perfect rhythm. The productiveness of our activity depends entirely on what we put into it, and in order to put our best into each thought and action, we need to order our mind to gather up all its scattered forces to establish our equilibrium. And we cannot do this unless we withdraw at intervals from the haste and noise of the outer occupation. That is why yogis and those who are seeking earnestly for light look upon the practice of silence as essential to their spiritual progress. In the first place, it enables us to store up a great deal of life force which now we expend unwisely in needless talking. We wear ourselves out, disturb others, and say much which might better be left unsaid when we talk constantly. We also dull the mind and lessen its power of penetration. All spiritual vision and deeper understanding are unfolded in the hours of silent reflection. It is in the moments of silence that we hear the voice of the infinite. When our ears are listening to the loud voices of the world, we cannot know that another voice is speaking in our heart. Therefore, those who have obtained direct vision of truth are not inclined to make their own voice heard. The productive life is always a silent life. When a man is creating something, he is not inclined to talk. He becomes wrapped in thought, and gradually, through his concentrated thought, he gains access to the hidden recesses of nature. He does not squander his forces by telling each little revelation as it comes to him. Sri Ramakrishna gives us the parable of the pearl oyster. It comes to the surface of the water to catch a raindrop, falling at the auspicious moment when the star Swati is in ascendancy. Then he goes down to the bottom of the sea and remains there until the pearl is formed. The same is true of the genuine seeker after wisdom. As soon as he has found his access to God, he becomes deep and silent. Silence is considered so necessary in India that there are great sages who become mounis or silent ones. Some of them take the vow of complete silence and direct all their physical and mental forces towards spiritual illumination. Others refrain from speaking of non essential matters. Through the observation of vow of silence, they become gifted in prophecy and power to bless others. Even the atmosphere of the place where they live is charged with a definite spiritual force. An example is given in one of our sacred books of a youthful sage, radiant with illumination, sitting in meditation under a banyan tree. A disciple, old and weary with life's cares, approached him with mind and heart full of doubt and depression. The disciple asked many questions, but even though the teacher ever remained silent, the doubts of the disciple were destroyed and he went away in peace. This shows us that if the light of truth shines within us clearly without obstruction, it will reach and enlighten others. It is not in India alone that they hold this view that a person does not have to talk in order to impart his teaching. It is shared by many of the mystics and seers of the world. A parallel instance is given by Plato. I will tell you, Socrates, says Aristotle, a thing incredible but nevertheless true. I made a great prophecy when I associated with you, even if I was only in the same house, though not in the same room, but more so when I was in the same room, and much more when I looked at you. But I made by far the greatest prophecy when I sat near you and touched you. Yet you may say, what can a silent man do? His scope of usefulness must be very limited. The greatest amount of good in the world is not done by the talker or even by the worker who is constantly busy with his hands and feet, but by the one who has found the true center of his being. His very existence throws radiance into the lives of countless people. We may have great desire to help others, but if we have not found the remedy for evil in our own life, even our best intentions will not do much for them. These monis may not speak, but they have the burning effulgence of the spiritual light within themselves. Their life itself is an expression of truth, and whether they speak or not, they are constantly shedding their holy influence on others. If we would help ourselves and our fellow beings, therefore, we must take certain hours when we can shut out the noise of the world and commune with the infinite. The deeper themes of life we can discover only when our mind is not disturbed by worldly agitations. Even a scientist, a musician, an artist must have communication with his ideal, and this cannot be done without silence. The practice of silence, however, does not mean merely refraining from speech. It means stilling the vital energies so that there is a cessation of all activity, both inner and outer. The body, the body must be without motion. The mind must be serene and the heart tranquil. We cannot accomplish this by merely withdrawing to a secluded spot. It is an interior quality rather. Outer conditions may aid us tremendously in attaining it, but without the inner poise, it is impossible to reach. Our thoughts grow undisturbed and uninterrupted on the silent soil of the mind. In silence, we are able to think better and we are able to express our ideas, thoughts, and everything through our outer action more effectively. When we cultivate this we gain not only greater efficiency but also fortify ourselves with the wonderful blessing of a serene attitude. People who are used to talking much, it is better for them to talk less and less and learn to act with more quiet and composed bearing. Almost invariably, we find that those who talk in excess are those who think less clearly and collectedly. An ideal tongue is one of the greatest curses. It not only hurts the people or the person who is directly responsible for it, but disturbs the peace of mind of many others. Sri Chaitanya, one of India's foremost saints, taught his disciples never to take part in gossip. He said that they should not only refrain from making gossip, but should never even listen to an ideal talk. For by doing so, they only encouraged the mischief mongers. We cannot possibly conceive any lofty thoughts or lift our prayer to the divine until our mind and heart are full of serenity. The practice of physical silence restores our body and sense organs. The practice of mental silence refreshes our mind and quietens all our inner faculties. This power gained through it is tremendous. When we undertake anything hastily and nervously, we make mistakes and have to do it over, thus wasting our time and energies. Without deliberation and balance, we can accomplish nothing worthwhile, and a moment of silence before each task enables us to maintain our balance. Its physical benefits is apparent at once. If we learn to bring ourselves to a state of absolute stillness, checking all unnecessary expenditures of force, our whole body is refreshed and strengthened. This reacts on the mind and makes us alert and free. Even from the point of view of the worldly advantages, therefore, it is wise to practice silence. The majority of the people have a very false standard of life. They imagine that when two or three human beings are together, they must always entertain each other. Often nature is providing us with inspiration and we miss it because of this foolish habit. Why should we suppose that whenever we are with others we must always talk? It means that our mind is empty. The noble mind is one that is filled from within and does not need continual diversion from without. It is not dependent on demanding. So we are seeing that such a mind is not dependent nor is it demanding. Its thought, it, its through is calm, all the thoughts become calm, and we become still. Only as we become more and more silent will our inward life unfold. When we have conceived an idea, if we put it into words, the greater part of its strength is dissipated and its success is rendered doubtful. Is not the logic of this evident? As soon as we draw our mind away from the idea itself and begin to discuss it, we set up countercurrents of thought. Our mental strength is expended in combating these, and little is left to carry out ideals to fulfillment. If we would be successful, we must conceive in silence, work in silence, and achieve in silence. Great things are always done silently. Whenever a life is fruitful, we shall always find that it is silent life. If we would make our endeavors more productive, we must try never to talk unnecessarily. It is a wonderful thing to have a controlled tongue. When we have established balance at this, we shall find that the other parts of our beings will become balanced and our whole life will gain new rhythm and illumination. In India, they adopt the simple practice that before they eat or drink or study or go to sleep or undertake any business, they sit in silence for a moment and try to unite themselves with the center of their being. When we are distracted by outer conditions or concerns, we lose our sense of proportion and we cannot do well what we have to do. As long as our physical eyes lead us to see the many, we cannot see the one. So the devotee closes his outer eye, that he may open his inner eye, with it perceive the deeper realities within. He chooses his outer ears. Always he will close them and he will open his inner ears and hear the voice of the infinite in the heart. The practice of silence has a profound significance when we embrace the spiritual life. As only still waters reflect the perfect image, so only on the surface of the silent heart do we receive the unbroken image of truth. Knowledge always destroys our ignorance and unrest, and we cannot increase our knowledge until we go down into the quiet recesses of our inner being. We must give ourselves a chance. There is not one who is not hungering for perfect health, for perfect peace and happiness. But these cannot come to us unless we create the right conditions for them. If we learn to live right, to think right, to make our life balanced and tranquil, we shall reap the result in a fuller expression of spiritual perfection. Now our ears do not hear the voice of the Supreme. The great teachers tell us to listen to that voice, to be guided by that voice. The ordinary man says that he cannot hear it, that it is all an imagination. But the mystic hears it because he has made his outer being silent and has found access to the inner shrine of his soul. When we begin to live the spiritual life, we touch a deeper note and we cease to judge from the surface. All differences are to be found only on the surface, and one who lives constantly on the surface does not see the connecting link between man and man, between one soul and another. But he who has learned to live below the surface sees unity everywhere. He is not dependent on human judgments. He is not influenced by the world. He is wholly guided and protected by the divine. In all his undertaking, he is led by the hand of God. To him, God is more real than any creature of flesh and blood. He walks with God, he talks with God, he lives with God. His whole being is centered in God, so that whether he speaks or does not speak, he expresses the thought of God. He does not have to use words to do it. Rather, he knows that the infinite can never find full expression in finite words. Therefore, in Vedas, it is said that the glory of the Supreme is beyond mind and speech. It is the ignorant man who claims loudly that his belief is only belief, his path is the only path. But one whose vision has become expanded through a larger realization grows dumb, and his silence is the most eloquent expression of truth. Let our lips sometimes be dumb, that our heart may sing the glory of the infinite. Let us give our inner being a chance to listen to the voice which is too subtle for the physical ear to hear. If for a few moments only each day we can still the noisy energy of our mind and body and learn to practice true silence, it will create a dynamo of spiritual power and elevate our whole being to the lofty heights of new consciousness. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. We will continue with this book, Silence as Yoga, again in the mornings. Please stay tuned to Devakshar. Do like and share our videos and do subscribe to our channel if you already haven't. Thank you so much for being with us. Namaskar.